Let's take it back to the NBA and bring in Jody Avirgan. He's a reporter at 538, and that is a site dedicated to statistical analysis when it comes to all things, lifestyle and politics and sports, of course. And that's why we're talking to Jody right now, because he recently wrote an article about how to keep teams in the NBA from tanking. Jody, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks for having me.
So,
how did you guys get the sports show as your name? That has to be like the most valuable name in all of programming.
Well,
you could probably sell that for a decent amount of money.
Woody and I came up with it, primarily driven by Woody, and it's working out good. It's working out well so far.
And we get people like you on. We get to talk to you. We get to see you on Skype.
Yeah, we wanted to call it the 538 show, but nobody knew what the hell we were talking about.
Yeah, fair enough.
Hey, Jody, you wrote the article at 538, and we all read it here. And I'm wondering, what do you believe is the best way? There were a number of different scenarios there, a number of different suggestions as to how to avoid this. What do you feel is the best way to keep teams from tanking?
So this project that we did was sort of a crowdsourcing project based out of our sports podcast that we have, Hot Takedown. And what we did was try and ask our listeners for advice and their plans. So we were really kind of at first sitting there and waiting for people's ideas. And we thought we were going to get like a couple dozen maybe weird ideas. We got 7,000 submissions with different plans for how to fix the draft. And then my job partially, was to read as many of those 7,000 as possible and kind of winnow it down and basically pick one that we wanted to officially endorse. So the one we ended up endorsing was this plan that basically suggests that teams, instead of owning their own pick each year, would buy futures on how they think other teams are going to do. So it would completely divorce your record from your pick. So let's say this year the Timberwolves, instead of getting a number one pick for having a terrible record, they would have actually said last year, we think the Orlando Magic are going to have the worst record in the league. And depending on where the Magic finish, that dictates the Timberwolves' position. So of the 7,000, this is the one we kind of landed on and chose to endorse. I like it because I think it's smart, and I think it would change the league in a good way and prevent tanking. But I also just kind of like the weirdness of it, and that was part of this project, was to find something a little innovative and just sort of start a conversation about how to change the system.
Every team has a capologist now. If you adopt this plan, is everybody going to need to hire a day trader or a hedge fund broker or what?
Well, one of the things I like about this plan is that it kind of doubly rewards good GMs, because you're making a pick on a player, which is the usual kind of GM job, but then you're also making a sort of pick about the state of the league, and that I think is a good, shows basketball knowledge. So the good GMs would still have that same impact.
Then that GM is evaluating other teams' personnel.
Can I ask a really stupid question here? So when exactly are they going to make that prognostication? When is that going to happen?
Yeah, and what do you do? Do you submit it to the NBA office?
The reason why I would say that is that teams are changing. They're in flux all the time up until the trading deadline. So you're having to predict what kind of teams they're going to be in case they just suddenly get LeBron James on their team and you go, oh, gosh, I picked that team to be awful.
And what about midseason trades? You have to deal with that too.
Okay.
So you guys are doing a good job in getting into a lot of the sort of ramifications of this. So the guys who submitted this, I should give credit to them, Samuel and Cody. They're two listeners to our podcast who came up with this plan. They kind of walk through a lot of these caveats. So to answer your first question, when would a team select which team they're going to bank on for the next year? There's a couple different ways it could happen. I like it happening at the same time as the draft. So, you're a team and you say, okay, with our pick, we're going to select this player, and then we're going to bank on this team being the worst team in the league next year, or the worst team, left on the board for next year. There are all sorts of implications for trades. Teams, one proposal is that if you have picked another team, those two teams couldn't trade with each other. There are like GM compete clauses. I can tell that Woody's just like, this is making all sorts of sense to him. But there are some ramifications, but certainly being able to anticipate, okay, what team is going to be able to get a good free agent, that's part of the process.
Did Did any proposal come in? Because I proposed one not long ago that I'm sorry doesn't make my head explode like that one will.
Well, I didn't see it in the spreadsheet, Woody. I'm sorry.
Okay, so here's mine, and you can now grab your head and try to keep it from exploding. That the team that's closest to being in the playoffs is the one that gets the number one pick. That way, there's no reason for you to tank. That way, and people go, well, that doesn't help the worst teams. Well, the worst teams stay worst anyway, because they're bad managers, they have bad coaches and stuff like that. And so here we're sitting here all day long, you're talking about the Knicks. The Knicks were the worst team in the world. They're not going to get the first player in the draft anyway. The Philadelphia 76ers have tanked for 2 years. They didn't get the first pick in the draft. Why don't you reward teams that really try? And you say the first team out is the first team.
As a matter of fact, the last team with the worst record to have the number one pick, I believe, was 2004, Orlando, 11 years ago.
So I'm sorry for raising my voice. I'll calm down now.
No, but so I think what you're suggesting was a very popular suggestion. And as I was reading through these many, many submissions and sort of trying to figure out the basic categories they fall into, a lot of people suggested that. And I think it gets to kind of like a bigger idea of what is the draft for and kind of what teams should we be helping. And I think going into this, I really thought, tanking is an issue and the draft is really about helping those bottom level teams move up. But it seemed like there's a lot of NBA fans out there, a lot of people submitted to us who said, no, the goal should be to move those mid-level teams into the elite category. And if we do that, they'll sort of drag those bad teams up with them. So that's certainly a suggestion. It just gets to what you think the NBA draft should be. The plan we picked and the sort of like plan, the lottery proposals that we sort of honed in on as our finalists, and we could talk about some of those other ones, still retain that notion of the worst team should get a little bit more help. But I'm with you on the sort of moving, even though I'm a Sixers fan, I'm with you on moving, those mid-level teams up into the elite, because that's a place where teams are really languishing as well. That 7, 8, 9, 10 spot.
You can't escape that spot. I mean, the Denver Nuggets are in that never land where they're just going to wander through
the desert
for years and years. I mean, teams that can't get free agents can't lure free agents because you're not California or you have no taxes like Texas and Florida, or you're New York or wherever it might be. I just that seems to me. I feel like I'm playing the stock market as Mark.
Jody, we're having a discussion under the assumption. Do we still have Jody?
I'm still here.
Okay,
we're something brilliant.
We're discussing this under the assumption that the NBA actually wants to change this. Does the NBA want to change this the way they're doing it right now?
Well, I mean, publicly, Adam Silver has said that he doesn't think that teams – actually, he sort of hedges his language in a very smart way. He says, I don't think players tank. And then he gets pressed and says, yes, okay, no one's saying players and coaches tank. What do you think about GMs? And he says, well, I really don't think that's an issue. But, I don't know if the league thinks this is that big of a problem. I mean, the way it is right now, what has happened, and some people are okay with this, is that tanking is a sort of storyline of itself. And if the NBA is about creating interesting storylines, what the Sixers are doing is a compelling storyline. Maybe the goal should be to win all the time, but if the goal is to sort of like keep interest in the league, Sixers fans have this sort of perverse storyline to follow, but at least they're into it.
They are perverse in Philadelphia. All sports fans, including you. You're perverse.
Yeah. I think some talk earlier.
Jody, that would constitute a compliment, just so you know.
What about the idea of abolishing the draft? Does that have merit or not? I know this was not what you were trying to improve the way you do the draft, right. but make it some sort of free agent system. Does that make any sense or no?
Well, we got a lot of suggestions along that. I would say that was one of maybe 4 or 5 of the most popular suggestions. I think the most popular ones were, Woody's idea of sort of reversing it, rewarding the mid-level teams, a sort of playoff to get into the playoffs, but then also a playoff for the first pick. But then a lot of people were also saying abolish the draft altogether. We didn't select something like that because we were trying to find something that potentially, in theory, maybe the NBA could adopt. But, I don't see the NBA just abolishing the draft at all. I mean, I personally think that that's, in a way, the fairest system, certainly for the players. but I don't see that happening. There are other ways to sort of talk about the sort of rookie cap and salary structure and so forth that hedges a little bit closer to that, which is, giving rookies and newer players the chance to have a little bit more agency. But fully abolishing the draft, I don't think it's going to happen anytime soon.
Jody, what was the most clever, the funniest, the most outlandish suggestion you guys got at 538?
All right, so we got a whole series. Let's say we got 7,000. 6,950 of them were like thoughtful and serious and thought through. And we selected one that I think has interesting ramifications, but also has a little bit of personality to it. We also got some really weird, funny, totally silly ones. My favorite being by far this notion that the draft should involve Adam Silver riding a bear into a tank full of fish, and each team has selected a particular fish in that tank, and the fish that Adam Silver's bear eats first gets the first pick in the draft. And then, important to note that if the bear eats Adam Silver, then you just go by record.
That will get great ratings.
Great. It actually, so if people want to go to 538.com, we actually got an illustrator to illustrate this image of Adam Silver riding a bear, and it's like my favorite artwork ever. I think I'm going to get a T-shirt made of it.
And what I'm thinking, if the NFL had grabbed this idea, they'd hold it over 3 nights. So the first day with the bear and Silver would do a song and dance, and then
Sometimes you get the bear.
Sometimes the bear eats you.
Yes.
Yeah, that would be good.
Jody, really appreciate your time. That was fun, and 538 is a great site. I read it a lot. Tell people how to, obviously 538.com, 538.com, and the podcast, and how to get a hold of you if they want to tweet you.
Sure. So the 538.com, all spelled out. We're part of ESPN, so you can find us through the ESPN homepage. And I encourage people to go read all the finalist proposals. We talked about a few, but there's a lot of good ideas out there. I've been getting lots of emails, so you can tweet at me, which is at Jody Avirgan, Avirgan, or you can just find me through the 538 website. And that podcast is called Hot Takedown, and it involves Kate Fagan, Chad Matlin, and Neil Payne, and it's kind of a statistics-based look at the stories of the week. It comes out every Tuesday, so take a listen, and we'd love to hear what you think.
Yeah, Kate's been promoting it on Around the Horn, so she's being able to sneak in some product placement for Hot Takedown. Hey, we wish you well. We wish you well. I love 538. I think it's quickly going to surpass another aspect of ESPN. I won't mention the name. The initials are Grantland, but you've made your own voice there on ESPN, and I really respect that. So,
thanks, Jody. We hope to talk to you soon. Good stuff.
All right, take care. Let's stay in touch.
Jody Avirgan of 538, and that was brought to you by Shanahan's Steakhouse, selected by the public as a best restaurant in Denver.
What does
we
that
think
mean?
it is. I don't know. We just think it's the best. And you can go to Open Table, make a reservation.
I think
Please
that's a
do that,
typo.
or you can book a reservation today at shanahanssteakhouse.com, and you'll probably run into Woody's there almost every night.